Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gaines for Girls podcast. As always, very excited that you're here. You can go to OutKick.com. That's where you can find all things Gaines for Girls. That's where you can like and subscribe. You can share these messages and episodes far and wide. And I hope you do that today because we have a very important message that we are trying to convey to a very important person or a very important administration and group of people. Today we are talking to Lila Rose. This is the amazing woman. She is the founder and CEO of Live Action. She started Live Action when she was 15 years old with, of course, the goal of exposing what abortion does to the preborn child and the mother. She has worked, tirelessly, relentlessly to make pro-life presentations and really represent this issue for what it really is, which is about being pro-woman. It is about being pro-God's truth. It is about pro-reality. So really awesome stuff she's doing there. Excited to talk to her today, specifically about defunding Planned Parenthood. I would argue the evil that is Planned Parenthood has been exposed pretty far and wide, at least in terms of the right-wing space. But there is more work to be done in spreading this message to all, especially the youth, especially mothers or expecting mothers, again, about the harm of terminating a developing child in the womb and defending the rights of the most vulnerable among us, again, children and women. So excited to get into that here. Check out this episode with Lila Rose. Well, Lila, thank you so much for joining the Gaines for Girls podcast. You are someone who really, I feel like I know I've watched you. I've watched everything that you've been able to do. And you had courage before courage was cool. So before we get into any, recent projects or news surrounding the pro-life movement, I just want you to take us back to really how and when you got involved in the movement.
Totally. And first of all, I know we were just talking before we started filming here, but I'm a huge fan of you and you are the tip of the spear, Riley. I mean, really some of the wins in the, protecting women, protecting girls work has been because of you. So thank you for being so courageous and keep it up. You're killing it. You're doing an amazing job. So my start on all of this was back as a teenager, starting my organization Live Action. And it was born out of finding out about abortion as a kid and really realizing this is about a human being who's being destroyed. That's what an abortion does. It's the ending of an innocent human life. And I was so deeply moved. I remember finding this book that had images of fetal development in it. You can see the baby growing, at just a few weeks old, the baby's heart is beating. You see this incredible, amazing development of the child. I saw an image of a baby who had been killed by a first trimester abortion. And at that stage, the baby has arms, legs, a face. You can see this human life. And I remember thinking, is this real? Are we allowing this? Is this really happening? And finding out there's 3,000 abortions every day in America. It's totally legal. It's taxpayer funded through Planned Parenthood. And I just thought, I cannot look away. This is, I believe, the greatest human rights issue of our day, how we're treating babies. And it was so offensive that this was being done in the name of women's rights, ending the life of a baby girl in the name of women's rights. It made no sense. So that inspired me to start Live Action. And the goal was education. And now we are the global leader for education in the pro-life movement and reaching millions of people every month with the truth about human dignity and the truth about the violence of abortion to help people become more pro-life.
Wow. I love how you mentioned the truth about human dignity. And I would imagine, knowing what your organization stands for, what, of course, the mission statement is, I would imagine your faith plays a pretty big role in this hard-fought and ongoing battle. We're living in a time where the DNC had a mobile murder clinic outside their convention last year. That feels pretty spiritual to me.
Yeah, it's demonic. Abortion is demonic. It's sacrificing another human being's life for your own, when everything about faith, about, Jesus Christ is giving one's life up for the sake of others, for the sake of us, right? That's what Christ did. So abortion is the inverse of what Jesus did for us. It's saying, I'm going to take a life of an innocent human being, a child, in order to have the life that I want and to have what I want as a woman or as whatever the society wants. So yeah, it was demonic. I was heartbroken to see that at the DNC. I mean, I remember back in the day, hearing people talk about the 1990s. Live Action was started in like maybe 2005, and people would say, "Oh yeah, well, Democrats want abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. That's what Democrats want." Now it's like the Democrats don't care about safe. Women are dying from legal abortions right now, by the way. They do not care about it being rare. Abortion on demand without restriction is the Democratic National Committee's entire platform. This is what they entirely support. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a spiritual war. I think on the Republican side, it's a spiritual war too, because unfortunately last year, there was a huge disappointment when some pro-life planks were taken out of the Republican Party's platform. Of course, it's still more pro-life than the Democrats by far, no contest there. But this is the defining issue. How do we treat human beings? Is life valuable? And it cuts to the heart of also for people of faith. You can't be a Christian and support abortion. It does not. It violates everything about our faith, which is about do not murder, love those that are in need, love your neighbor, see God and other people. We're made in his image. It goes against our faith to support abortion in any way. And yet there's many people today who consider themselves Christians on both the left and the right who think some abortion is okay or who fully support abortion. So I think, yeah, again, it's an educational battle as much as it is a spiritual battle.
You mentioned, of course, being made in God's image. It really goes back to the first book. And this is something that I see all the time in the fight that I have found myself fully immersed in, the gender ideology movement. Again, he made them male and female. We have seen several different reports and these amazing exposés where Planned Parenthood is helping teenagers, minors, children transition after like a 30-minute consult. So can you just talk about the parallels, again, between the gender ideology movement and the abortion epidemic, and how Planned Parenthood is entangled in both forms of destruction?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great question, Riley. And it is incredible to look at the facts that Planned Parenthood, which is the biggest abortion chain, $1.7 billion corporation, getting $700 million from taxpayers every year. In the last reported year, $700 million from taxpayers. And not only are they committing abortions, they're doing over 1,000 abortions a day. That's 1,000 human lives that are snuffed out. One of their fastest growing new services is, guess what? Gender affirming care. So they are in the hormone business now to give puberty blockers to sometimes even young, people to promote the transgender ideology and ultimately wrecking lives that way. So if Planned Parenthood can't wreck the lives of children in the womb, they're dead set on wrecking the lives of children outside of the womb. This is the most evil corporation in American history. And you could say one of the most, if not the most, in world history. And it's happening all around us. It's in our communities. And we are still funding them every single day. As we speak, they're going to get another almost $2 million today. So this is, the big call to action right now, the five alarm fire. It's like, what is going on? President Trump has done some amazing work, as you've been obviously at the White House to celebrate some of his executive orders. Where is the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which is pro-abortion, pro-transgender ideology? And then they're also supporting the Democrats politically and trying to defeat every Republican in office. The fact that we still fund them millions of dollars a day is absolutely insane. So this is the call to arms of every American to say, raise your voices. It's time to defund Planned Parenthood.
That's right. That's right. So President Trump, is he yet to make an announcement on this, if this is something he's willing to do? Does this come through Congress? Do they have, ultimately the opportunity here to defund Planned Parenthood? And if so, again, what's been proven to be true is the GOP, both political parties, but I would say especially the GOP, they really lack a backbone a lot of times, especially on these issues that are deemed controversial or hot button. Do you think this is something that the GOP would take up if given the opportunity?
Yeah, this is a no-brainer for the GOP. This should be a flagship issue for the GOP to stand up for the lives of children in and outside of the womb. And also to say this nonsense that women, need abortion to succeed. It's complete nonsense. Let's actually help women in all areas of their life. But if they're going to be, if they're pregnant, then they need support. And that's what the pro-life movement does, by the way. It's all about pregnancy resource centers. We have thousands of pregnancy resource centers, free support for mothers. Planned Parenthood doesn't do any of that, of course. course. But I mean, yes, this should be a flagship issue, I think, for President Trump and the GOP. I think, unfortunately, there's been, again, I don't know what's going on behind the curtains, on this issue, but I do think that there has been some big pressures on President Trump by the pro-abortion side to say, we're not going to be too front and center with this issue. And I think that's a big mistake because the base is very galvanized by this. The people that, turned out for Trump, the evangelicals, the Catholics, a lot of young, people who turn out for Trump, they're passionate about the social issues. The social issues matter. I mean, this, Riley, you're leading on this. So
I think what won the election in November.
Yes. And I think to back down on this most essential issue of do human beings have rights, and is a child worth anything? Like, should they be protected, right? To back down on that is a big mistake. Now, you asked, well, what about this defund issue? Is that something Trump can do? Is that something Congress does? Here's the thing. They can both do it. Trump could do it tomorrow in an executive order. He could do it today. He could do an executive order to disbar Planned Parenthood from receiving Title X funding as an example. They get $60 million a year in Title X funding. Interestingly, President Trump did this in the last term, and it helped shut down Planned Parenthood clinics, but he hasn't done this yet. So we're waiting, just one little signature, President Trump, it's just going to take you literally 2 seconds, sign it, and you literally remove $60 million from this horrifically evil organization. And what about Doge wanting to cut money? You're complaining about, all of these crazy funds of money in other countries through USAID. This is an easy one, right? So there is an executive order you could do to cut that $60 million. You could actually cut all of it and just say, this is an executive order saying that Planned Parenthood as an abortion provider cannot receive Medicaid dollars. That could be an executive order. Congress can do the exact same thing. It can happen through Congress. Right now, there's the reconciliation process happening to get the budget approved, for our federal government. Very easily could write in a line item that says Medicaid money, which is where Planned Parenthood gets most of their money, besides the Title X money. They're two separate, buckets of money. They could easily, the Congress could write in there, we're not going to give Medicaid dollars. And there's a lot of scrutiny right now. Are we overpaying Medicaid? Is this, are there parts of it that are, fat or that are not actually, being wasted, not actually helping people? Yeah. If you're giving money to Planned Parenthood, you're not helping people. You are hurting people. So the hundreds of millions of dollars that Planned Parenthood is billing Medicaid for, that us as the taxpayers are funding them with, it's a no-brainer, should be stopped. So those are just things that President Trump could do today and that the Congress should be doing now. There's voices calling for this, Riley, but it's a little bit concerning. It seems to kind of be maybe a back burner issue for some folks right now. And again, the money's going out every day. So we're urging, obviously Doge to take action. They can do stuff through the executive branch, and then obviously Congress to take action. We just need more voices because there's a lot of stuff going on. I think a lot of distractions, and there's a few people in the administration who I think anything to do with Planned Parenthood, we just don't want to touch it. And that is a huge, I would say, even a fatal mistake for them and for the GOP to make.
No doubt about that. $700 million is unfathomable. That amount of money, I just can't even really wrap my mind around it. I've seen you've been with Speaker Johnson so hopefully he's been a good ally. He's someone who really I admire. He gets a lot of flack. I believe he has the hardest job, but hopefully he's been a good ally in this. And you mentioned, one of the misconceptions that you receive with live action, with the position that you have taken being, of course, pro-life, is that you don't care about children after they're born or women after they deliver their babies. Again, that is a huge misconception. So what are some of the other, preconceived notions that people believe either about the pro-life movement or, again, about defunding Planned Parenthood?
It's such a good question because Planned Parenthood, we could talk a lot about their operations. They're an 100-year-old organization. They spend a few $100 million a year, Planned Parenthood, on marketing and public relations for abortion. Think about the impact of hundreds of millions of dollars spent on persuading people that abortion is good and that pro-life is bad, right? That's their gig. So anyways, separate from that, here's the reality. There are hundreds of millions of nonprofit dollars. It's not from the taxpayers. It's pro-lifers freely giving it, including myself, to pregnancy resource centers, which there are thousands of them across the country, more than Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics that are set up in virtually every community. I mean, virtually every woman in the country lives within, let's say, 100 miles, and there's different support systems for them that provide free resources for pregnant mothers and for young mothers. So that is an incredible system of amazing people I've met. There's some of the most kind, loving people in the world who just want to serve and help moms. A lot of women don't even know these exist because the propaganda machines like Planned Parenthood are telling them that the only solution for you is come on in and I'll give you an abortion. And by the way, we're going to bill half of your appointment to Medicaid. Literally, that's the crazy thing. Planned Parenthood can bill, the consultation to Medicaid. They can bill the pregnancy test to Medicaid. The abortion they won't bill because technically there's something called the Hyde Amendment, but then they might do an after follow-up visit. That's Medicaid. So Planned Parenthood is very smart about the billing to get as much money, extract as much money as they can from taxpayers. But there's this misconception that pro-lifers don't care about women. It's obviously the opposite. The leaders in this movement are largely women, several of them who've had abortions themselves. They know how devastating abortion is to women, their mental, their physical, their spiritual health. This is against women as well. And they know this is a human being. This is a life, and we can never take a life. It's never our right to take a life. So you have these incredible pro-life organizations that are doing the hard work day in and day out. They're not getting taxpayer dollars. They're not getting big media, attention. Live Action promotes them and connects women to a lot of these groups, but they are doing that beautiful day in and day out work. The other one that, I just hear a lot, Riley, which is this idea that women are empowered by abortion. It's abortion basically, especially among Hollywood elites, has become synonymous with women's empowerment. If you're for women's rights, you must support abortion. And it's so insane to me because I am 100%, as you are, for women's rights, for real women's rights. But there is no right that a woman has to kill her child. I mean, that just doesn't exist. This is an independent human being that is completely individual. They're dependent in terms of they need our care. When you're pregnant with a baby, they desperately need your care. But this is a unique individual human life, and they deserve to be protected. And I think it's a mindset shift, right? Because we were taught, I think the feminists of the 1990s and the 2000s and the 1980s, they were saying, you don't need a man, you don't need kids, you just want to go work. Right. That's your power, is go serve a boss in a high rise somewhere. And it's okay, first of all, yes, work is amazing. Work can be beautiful, but yeah, we need each other. Women and men belong together, not that everyone has to be in a relationship or get married. And children are always a gift, even when inconvenient or seen as, unexpected. They're always a gift. So we have to shift our view of this empowerment message to say the real empowerment of a woman is to be all the things that she can be, right? One of those things is a mother. In fact, that's our superpower as women. And so instead of killing off our babies or saying, oh, pregnancy is a disease, it's so bad, we should say, oh, let's help mothers. Let's help women if they're pregnant. Let's support them if they're pregnant. And one last thing I'll say here, I think a part of this too is a message about, honestly, sexual ethics. I get into this personally because I'm personally really passionate about this. And I think it's a Gen Z millennial message too. We've also been just given constantly this message that sex is meaningless. You can have sex as long as there's consent. Use contraception, you're good to go, right? Well, that's why unplanned pregnancies happen, by the way. And also, that's not a path to happiness for people. People are happy when they're committed in love in a public, you're married, I'm married. They've pledged to each other for life, and sexual intimacy is a part of their bond and their unity. And that's an incredibly beautiful and healthy design. When you strip that away and say, well, sex is whatever, just, because Planned Parenthood says hookup is great, sexually, explore yourself sexually, as long as there's consent, there's no right or wrong when it comes to sex. And that message is so damaging and is one of the reasons that there are even unplanned pregnancies and that we even have an issue with abortion. So that's another thing that I think is the misconception about this, is that sex has no meaning when sex is really sacred and beautiful. And we need to put it back where it belongs as a society, which is in a lifelong committed relationship called a marriage.
Mm-hmm. But instead, we've seen people like Bonnie Blue, totally propped up. This is a woman who, had sex with 1,000? Is that the most recent stat?
Yeah,
1,000
so.
different men in one day. Again, I cannot even believe, number one, logistically, how does that work? How does that happen? That is, again, I can't even put myself in those shoes. I can't imagine that. But then again, to see how our society, people on TikTok, whatever it is, really prop this up. She just was given a $500,000 car. It's just utterly ridiculous. I mean,
that's a Planned Parenthood thing, though. I mean, that's what's so crazy, Riley, is that, yeah, we see this like OnlyFans phenomenon and like, people like Bonnie Blue or whatever, and these like crazy, promotion of just promiscuous sex, right? And pornography. Planned Parenthood's ideology is that we are, from children, sexual beings where sexual experimentation is always a good thing. There's no sort of morality around sex, that as long as you want to do it, you should do it and try it. And this sort of no morality, no holds barred around sexual activity, and like not even seeing sex as sacred. It's not about relationships and love. It's about just literally an orgasm. I mean, that's like the whole ideology. Did you know that the number one sex educator in our country of kids is, guess who? It's Planned Parenthood. It's Planned Parenthood. It's insane. So they're not only killing babies, transing the kids, they are doing the sex education for our children. It is no wonder that we have a whole generation of now women who are OnlyFans, models, and, the people like Bonnie Blue in the United States who are completely brainwashed about their bodies, their value, about sex. It all goes back to Planned Parenthood and the ideology that they have been promoting now for an entire century.
Are you seeing a shift back? Because I think in a lot of different areas, especially as it pertains to the culture, following November 5th, we have seen almost this return to normalcy and common sense, and people are at least a little more bold in declaring what they know to be true. Again, let's take it back to that men are men and women are women. Are you seeing, hope for the future of the pro-life movement, where arguably over the last few years, there was a big taint on the movement, even by people who call themselves Republicans?
I'm incredibly hopeful because I just see, everyday people who themselves are exposed to the pro-life message. They learned about what abortion is, the violent killing of a baby, right? They understand this other view of sex and the human person, of human dignity. And they realize that we can't really have a country if we don't respect human lives, like the value of especially children's lives. And I think when people just hear these messages and some of their concerns are met, they might say, well, what about these particular cases around abortion? What about this? And you learn about, well, no, abortion is never medically necessary. It's not life-saving. You hear from doctors who are pro-life who explain this. You kind of do the research, right? People do become pro-life. And I think that's an increasing wave of people. Unfortunately, in politics, as you know, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the politician to kind of catch up to where people are trending, because they're kind of looking at the past, not the future. And so I think that there is this kind of behind the scenes, a bit of a tug of war in the Republican Party about what's their identity. And if the Republican Party's identity is we are what the Democrats were doing 15 years ago, right? If we are the Democrats of 15 years ago on social issues, like, 15 years ago, the Democrats were safe, legal, and rare in abortion. And if that's what the Republican Party wants to be today, that's looking backwards, not forwards, and they're going to lose the future. They're literally not going to be distinguishable from the Democrats, and we're just going to go sliding left off of a cliff as a country. So I think it's absolutely essential right now for, your voice, our people to raise their voices and say, no, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, a baby is a baby. Sex belongs in marriage. Like, why is the government paying for people's condoms? Like, the whole system is broken right now with obviously Planned Parenthood. Let's fix this, President Trump. Let this be a part of your amazing legacy and the Doge legacy. I think that would be really that would provide more of a future for the GOP, quite frankly, and the longevity that many of these politicians are hoping for, like JD Vance. So my hope is that they make the right strategic choices right now.
Yeah, you mentioned, right, of course, culture changes, but morality and Christian principles do not change. What our Bible teaches, it certainly does not change. Last thing for you. I mean, this week we saw Ben and Jerry's, which have just been, the social justice warriors of our time. They celebrated National Abortion Provider Appreciation Day. I've got to get your thoughts on this. I can't understand why an ice cream company is involved in this, using their platform to push and fund an evil ideology.
It's so dark, Riley. Ben & Jerry's is already an overpriced little thing of ice cream, and it's also an incredible amount of saturated fats. But that's another thing. Not that all fats are bad, but it's just like a big bomb of expensive sugar in this little carton. And the branding obviously increasingly is this leftist virtue signaling. So I would just say for every single conservative or person of good conscience out there who hears about this, it's a very easy decision when you go to the grocery store if you want to buy an ice cream. You know what not to get. And it's that, because they are literally spitting in the face of anyone with any faith, with any sense of morality. And they're saying they support transgender stuff. They support killing. They're literally, it's not even we support women's rights for them. We support the abortionists. Like, they don't even care about women's rights, even in their language anymore. It's like, we love abortionists. So I think
people who are killing the babies.
Yeah. So there's no way I will ever be having another spoonful of that, reprehensible ice cream. And I know you won't either. And I think people just need to know. And, let's see that business tank. It's not okay anymore to be a far left virtue signaler who wants to, basically sell your corporation to pro-abortion, pro-trans the kids ideologies. Like, don't let the consumers be fooled anymore. Let people just say, enough. We're not buying this gross product.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I haven't been back to Ben & Jerry's since 2020 during all of the BLM stuff. And really that's when I just totally had my eyes open to, number one, not just Ben & Jerry's, but corporations as a whole. That's when they really got involved in all of this social justice battles, again, even where it didn't necessarily make sense. So I won't be having Ben & Jerry's either. Where can we find you? What's next for you, for the movement and for you personally?
Thanks, Riley. Well, we're working to defund Planned Parenthood right now. That's the big thing. We have this opportunity. Elon Musk actually wrote in an op-ed last year with Vivek saying that he wanted to look at Planned Parenthood funding. It made no sense to be funding them. So get the job done. Now's the time. I have a podcast, Lila Rose Show, which, all the podcasts go on YouTube, wherever, and then liveaction.org. Follow us. We're all over socials. I'm on socials, but we're here to be a resource for people who care about mothers and babies and families. And we're here to provide, the content to help people discuss this with friends, bring it into their church community, be prepared and educated on politics. So definitely follow all the social channels.
Well, we are going to push the message far and wide. We are going to get defund Planned Parenthood trending. I mean, this is what every elected official, unelected bureaucrat, this is what we need to be spending our time on, because again, there is no more important cause than humanity, than human life. And that is what we are dealing with here. So thank you, Lila, for everything that you do, for what you will continue to do. It really does take guts. I can't even tell you how many times when, of course, obviously I'm very pro-life, but in taking that stance, I will have people tell me, Riley, I agree with your stance of not having men and women's sports, but, stay in your lane. You're really crossing a line here. I don't know if I can support you anymore. Guess what? I do not care because again,
you're like, do you know who you're talking to? The same girl who was going to speak up against this, you think is going to be silent on the things that matter. Yeah.
And nothing matters
you go
more
for it.
Than this.
Yes.
Nothing
than children,
more.
Babies. Riley, I'm also super pumped you're coming out here for our Young Women's Summit. We're having our first one in Southern California, and I'm so excited. So we'll see you soon. But thank you for being you, and keep it up. You're amazing.
You rock. Thank you, Lila.
Thanks, Riley.
$700 million of your dollars, my dollars, us as taxpayers. That's what we are paying to Planned Parenthood to, again, continuing to terminate human life in the name of women's empowerment and feminism. Weirdly enough, really sick, really evil, just grotesque. And Lila said it best. It really is spiritual. So we are trying to push the message of defunding Planned Parenthood. This would benefit all of us. Again, not just the babies in the womb who are on the brink of death, but it would benefit, again, Americans and taxpayers. So share the message. Let it be known. We want to defund Planned Parenthood. We hope you are listening. President Trump, Elon Musk, the Doge Committee, and all of Congress. Really, really important stuff. We appreciate you guys. Again, share these episodes. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can do that at OutKick.com. And we will see you guys again next week. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.